G'day listeners, welcome to Bar Karate, the sailing podcast. My name is Jordan Spencer and it's that time of the week where we get to hang out with some really cool sailors, but of course I have to share the microphone duties with my two idiot mates. So first off, let's welcome to the microphone Mr. Brett Perry.
Greetings, exalted one.
BP.
Resumes is the word of the day.
Resumes?
Yeah, I don't think anyone can beat today's guest.
Oh.
As far as I'm concerned, I just had a look. So we're not worthy there. The other thing, crimes of passion. Passion often gets people in trouble, and today could be that day.
Oh, I know where you go. For the uninitiated listener, they could be thinking you're looking for a job and you're about to kill your wife.
Apparently I will be looking for a job if I go through what I want to go through.
Let's bring in the other one.
He had a voice that could make a wolverine purr.
Mr. Nick Boss.
So it's official, gents. When you don't think you can get much lower in the pecking order of your family, it happens with the purchase of a puppy this week.
Yes.
So, I've gone down another rung. It's perfect.
What did you get? A cavoodle? Or what did you say the other?
Cavoodle, yeah. You know, it's been breeded specifically to extract every bit of manlyism out of yourself.
Congratulations.
So I've been pushing it around the neighbourhood in a little pram because it's not allowed to walk on the footpath yet.
Don't want to get its poor little...
What colour is it?
It's basically, put it this way, it's more than eligible to be a mascot for the Ginga Challenge. And there's a fair chance it's a spitting image of one Jordan Spencer.
Oh, there's some bad images going through my head right now.
Oh, dear. So if anyone sees you walking down the street, Boss, do they say, "G'day, Bossy"? And what else do they, do they call out the dog's name if they try and extract it from you? Have you got a name?
Sorry. The dog's name?
Yeah.
We've chucked a few around. You helped me out with one name there. The original name was Milo.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially, you threw out the name Taco.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun. It's a good feeling name.
Mm-hmm.
Marlo seems to be up there, but I'm going to have to chat to our friends up in the UK to see if I can get some sponsorship for the name of Marlo.
They're keen.
Yeah.
Why don't you just go for Harkin?
Well, I was going to go Maffioli. Not sure.
I could probably link you up, Vicey, with Harkin or Marlo.
Hang on, what's that?
Who's that?
Who's that guy? Get on with it. Come on.
All right. Okay. I don't know how to do this intro. I really haven't thought it too hard, but basically we've got a big swinger on the phone this morning, evening, depending on where you're sitting in the world. We actually have the boss of the UK Olympic sailing team. That's the basis of it. So welcome to the show, Mark Robinson.
Thanks, gents. Good to be here. It's 8 p.m. here in the UK.
8 p.m. in the UK, 5:30 a.m. in Adelaide.
We were discussing just before we went on air. It's 6 in Sydney, but we did say it's happy hour in Bombay.
Correct.
Exactly.
Okay.
So Vicey, you'll be glad to know I've been cleaning out the spare room all day because I hear on good authority that you're moving to the UK to be the president of the Land Rover Appreciation Society.
Well, that may or may not be true. So I'm ready. I'm ready to put on my Eton accent, grab my hounds, and make my way over.
Or Marlo, as it is in this case.
Exactly. Well, there's a bed there, ready made.
Is there such a thing as the Appreciation Society for a Land Rover?
Look, this has got Jordan going.
Yeah. I went for a walk yesterday morning and I was walking down the street and there was this big patch of oil and I've gone, oh, somebody's got a Land Rover. That was the first thing that popped into my head. I can't believe it. Dear. Oh, we should get on with the show rather than talk about redundant things like Land Rovers. Landfill.
World's greatest investment, I think you find it.
Okay.
So there's plenty of them in the UK, not surprisingly.
Mark, you're not a POM. You're an Aussie running the UK Olympic squad. Do you feel like a traitor at all, or you just totally embraced?
Actually, on one side of the family, I've got British grandparents, so not completely. Unfortunately, on the other side, they're Scottish convicts, but you can't have everything, can you?
It's interesting the pathway that you've taken to get to where you are, mate. When you started out, did you have any vision of where you were going to end up?
Not running the British sailing team, no. I probably thought I'd end up with the Aussie team at some point, which I did on the Paralympic side, certainly, and helping on the Olympic side. But no, you never quite, like anything in this business, you never quite know where it will end up, as most of our panellists will know.
Yeah.
So maybe, how did it all happen, Mark?
Well, obviously, obviously worked through the CYC as we, a couple of us have held up the bar there on too many occasions, and then went off back into Olympic stuff with Thailand and then Singapore. Came back to Australia, got a call up from the guy that was running the show then to come and help them. Ended up running the para program through till Rio, and then Paralympic sailing was thrown out of the games. So, there was an opportunity there to stay on, but it would only have been sort of running the Olympic pathway, if you like, which was the other half of my job that I'd been doing. And I said to Peter Conde, who was running the thing at the time, who's now the AIS director, look, I'm going to go and do something else, because otherwise in 4 years' time, when he sort of retired and a few others might have retired, then it'd be a mass exodus. So I went looking for a few different roles in different Australian sports, which is what I actually thought I would end up doing when I left Singapore and came back in 2011. Even tried out for the Kiwi sailing team and got quite close to the end, but I think they were afraid I'd jump ship very quickly after one quad. And then in the end, this role came up, and applied for it, ended up with it. And the irony of the whole situation is what I had predicted, of not letting everybody leave at once. Not long after I left for the UK, Peter Conde was headhunted to go and run the AIS, and there was a bit of a mass exodus of staff. So
it's interesting. So you sort of touched briefly on it. You ran the sailing office at Cruising Yacht Club of Australia for about 8 years, and then, as you said, went on to be the head coach of the Thai and the Singapore sailing teams, then came back as performance manager at Australian Sailing, where our Paralympic team won 2 gold and a silver. So, it's interesting that the CYC in Australia still has the best sailing program. I think everyone would agree. The opportunities that come out of there are fantastic. And then, of course, you're a head measurer for IMS in Australia as well. So you've definitely got yourself involved on that administrative, running, coaching side. But for you, it all started in Brisbane sailing in a Sabo, like a lot of the kids up in Brisbane, and like Brett's just starting with now. What made you first go into sailing?
Well, my parents met sailing. So my dad's from Brisbane, obviously British parents. My mother's from Sydney. So my grandfather on my mother's side was an old 18-foot skiff guy called Jack Boyd, who a number of the old 18-foot skiff guys will know. And so they met sailing, and it was sort of inevitable we'd end up sailing. The funniest bit is my first sort of official trying out sailing was in a Sabo at Sandgate with Adrian Finglas, of all other people. But the funniest bit of that story is I also got to try a Tornado that day, and I said to Dad, I don't like the Sabo, I want the Tornado. I'm only like 5 years of age or something. So.
Well, we're glad you didn't pick up on the rest of Adrian's traits.
I've been carrying him ever since.
Exactly. But there's some pretty, you would have then grown up around some pretty influential, some very good yachties there in Finglas. And as in that time that you did come up, spent some time with Chris Hoskins as well?
Yeah. I mean, Chris and I, we grew up sailing Sabos against each other at Royal Queensland. Ended up sailing 420s after I'd done a couple of years with people like Lucas Prescott and Jason Muir. Then we ended up doing 420s, stopped for a while. I think Chriso ended up working at Beneteau. Roscoe's Bay, I think you were there too, Bicey, at some point.
Yeah.
And then we ended up poorly campaigning 470 for 2000, as we now know with hindsight, very poorly campaigning.
It was fun, though.
It was fun, yeah. I mean, it's interesting. You talk about the CYC stuff, and when I first went to CYC, I moved to Sydney to sail 420s with after high school. I basically picked a uni degree in Sydney that got me down there to sail with Chris, who'd moved down there a year before, and I think he, Matty Day, and Brad Kellett had sort of been the first team out of the youth academy. And I ended up coaching there under Dane Sharp. It was my first job at the CYC. But that whole youth academy program that they do, which I know the CYCSA is now starting one up. The amount of people that it churned out working in the industry, or either running big boat campaigns or running an administration. It's amazing how many people have come out of that program.
And it still does. It's still doing that. So yeah.
It was a good foresight by the people at the time, the board at the time.
Absolutely. And just going back, so Chriso's been on the show before, which is quite a popular episode. I think Jane was feeding him a couple of reds throughout the interview. So
he doesn't need any red to
quite a bit of fun. Going. And we have had Adrian on also. Ironically, people couldn't quite pick their accent. So we're glad that's one of the traits he didn't pick up. the Hosking fingless accent.
Yeah, it's out there, isn't it?
It is out there.
Look, I can't talk, don't get me wrong, but
they actually sailed 470s together before I sailed with Chriso. They had a run at it. But Chriso's not short of a word, is he? You just got to watch the TP52 footage.
Yep. Here.
Yeah.
Chriso.
Good lad.
So, mate, you had this, like as you say, you sort of had this sort of full dinghy sailing background, and then obviously you go into the skiff world, did the moths, all that sort of stuff, and then there's a whole offshore career which we'll talk into. What made you sort of go down, I guess, that sort of coaching? Was it just wanting a job in sailing? Was that what?
Well, I go back to the CYC thing. So I finished high school. I had divorced parents, and Mum was back in Sydney and Dad was in Brisbane. So I finished high school in Brisbane. Chris had moved to Sydney, and I wanted to sail 420s with him. So I picked a naval architecture degree to get myself back to Sydney to sail with him, and then ended up, Dane needed some help coaching at the CYC. So I sort of fell into it, if you like. And before too long, I was 2IC in the sailing office and then eventually running it. So, I've never practiced as a naval architect. In fact, I never finished the degree. I just sort of fell into this career. And I mean, to be honest, when I left the CY after 8 years, I thought I'd just run the first Hobart race without a major sponsor for 25 years. And, I had this offer to go off and do the Thai thing for 9 months for their Asian Games in 2002. I thought that would be a good segue to something else. At the time, as you say, I'd been trained up by Dave Kellett as an IMS measurer, IRC measurer. Become the chief measurer of the country, and I think I was sort of destined to take over from Tony Mooney in the rating office at what was then the AYF. And then I went off, did this coaching stint, thinking I was going to come back. I came back and consulted for the Hobart race in 2002 to help them out, and because I think Hiko was the chair at the time. I'd done lots of offshore miles with.
The great man.
Yeah, great man. Rest in peace. And basically got the Olympic bug again, I think. And so my work with the Thai team not gone unnoticed by those in charge in Singapore, and they sort of patted me on the back and said, "Why don't you come and take on this program?"
And off to the wonderful Chengi Yacht Club you went.
Yes, yeah, well, not quite. The National Sailing Centres, that's where we went to drink, but the National Sailing Centre is somewhere else.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, so I just sort of, had one mapped out in the sort of offshore world, one career path, and then sort of fell back into the Olympic thing, back into the dinghy stuff. Yeah.
So
it must have been a bit disappointing coming back thinking you were going to take over the handle as the official measurer and pick up old mate's Cointreau bottle that he uses to do the stability test on the boats.
Old Goldman. I remember that.
Yeah, geez. We don't have to do that now with IRC, do we?
No.
Thank
Well,
God.
in saying that, last year when I was in Sydney and we were measuring the Willow or the Maserati, he broke it out again.
Oh, really?
The Cointreau bottle, yeah. It's still the exact same one that we used 25 years ago. So,
Ando, geez.
Yeah,
right.
it's amazing.
My last Hobart was on that boat. It's quite
Yeah.
a nice ship, that one.
very good.
Um,
Very nice.
Yeah, well, the interesting IRC stories. I remember with Sean Langman at Noakes, we were weighing boats one year, and we had a couple of old cruising boats, like the old short haul fleet at CYC. We're doing a bunch of boats, and they had the crane not beside the travel lift bay or not beside the dock, but actually reaching out into the travel lift bay. And I went to pick up this boat, and of course the crane started going. It was a bit too heavy, and they got the boat like 90% out of the water, 90% of the keel out of the water, and had to dump it. And then the boat just sank and bang straight back into the back of the travel lift bay. And I'm like, not me.
I'm stepping away. Yeah, Sean didn't let that one on to us when we had him on.
It's quite a while ago now. It's nearly 20 years ago now.
So
Back in the day before phone cameras.
with
Before occupational health and safety, I think.
with your sailing and the dinghy stuff, mate, you know, you've sailed a good range of boats. Do you have any that sort of is a personal favourite, the boat that you sailed?
Well, the Moth's obviously the favourite because they had such a heavy involvement in the whole conversion to foiling. I was a president worldwide for 12 odd years.
Yeah.
We went through the foiling revolution, and had Rowan for a while as secretary, and then Adam May after that, who now works for me with the British team. And just where we took that, you know, and just the boat itself, you know, it's just such a joy to sail. Like, you know, we were building 30 boats a year worldwide, 2000, 2001, and we got up to like 700 or something a year. I think it's plateaued back down now to sort of 500 odd, but, you know, that's probably the proudest moment in dinghy sailing.
It's almost a whole story in itself, isn't it? You could talk for an hour on that.
Yeah, you could talk for hours on that one.
It is truly, it is, you know, it's for such an old class, it's truly an amazing boat because it's such the most modern boat going around. It's such a good test bed for everything that is happening that makes it sort of wonderful. I was sort of interested, you know, the 12-foot skiff and was probably an extreme development class on its own. You know, the 12-foot skiff, you bring out all sorts of crazy things, but that's sort of gone by the wayside. You know, I wonder why one is so successful and one isn't. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
I mean, some of it's probably to do with having to find crew. I spent half my childhood in Brisbane and half in Sydney because my parents divorced early, and in Sydney my mum was from Abbotsford 12, so I did quite a lot of Sabos and Flying 11s up there, and, you know, went riding in the skiffs first when they put bow poles on, the normal spinnaker poles and things like that. And they were fairly big at the time, but they were probably pretty expensive at the time for the amount of boat you got. I don't know whether it may well have changed now, but I mean, the Moth is just so simple. You can pack it up, put it in a box. You know, it's one person. It's, you know, in this day and age when people are struggling for time, single-handed tends to be the easier thing to do. I mean, the Moth's biggest challenge at the moment is the cost. It's just
it's blowing out.
It's going to hit a point where it just implodes, if you like. Yep. I talk quite often to the current president, Luca Rossotti, who runs Fording Week, about it. How do you do that? But then the ethos is to always be on the cutting edge. You know, it is a development class, so you've got to be careful not to lose the traditions which got it there in the first place.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I think, George, you'd alluded to it previously, but the Moth itself, as in its current form, is the best way that these, specifically the pros, can refine their trade and put themselves out there for the current, whether it's the Cup or Sail GP or whatever it is. But like you say, by having that pro element, the costs do get significantly higher. I mean, apart, you know, Slingers and all those guys, but then Nathan, he sailed pretty much his boat straight out of the box for whatever that cost is probably a quarter of what Slingers' boat cost in the last.
Yeah, I think Nath's Mach 2 is about 25 US.
Yeah.
And we're hearing I don't know how true this is, but the beakers are sort of £40,000. I don't know what that is in US, but it's pretty horrendous. You know, it's like big. 60 Aussie, 70, 65 Aussie.
Yeah.
When we went to foiling, we were at 15,000 Aussie for a Mark Thorpe built Hungry Tiger. Yeah. And a lot of it is the cost is in the foils, obviously all the high modular stuff. And but you can do things like cut down the number of foils you use and things like that to control the cost. But I mean, fundamentally, I think it's important to have the good guys in there. To promote the class.
The inspiration is concerned. Like every young kid out there now watched those worlds and saw who the top 10, top 20 was, and is just inspired and wants to sail them off.
Well, the other point is what Lucas said. If you're in the top 20, you got a job, right? And so that was a interesting comment. You know, he's saying that these guys are so good, and everyone's aspiring and watching and learning, and it's a good thing for the sport. But you know, as you say, where is the limit, and do you hold it? No, I don't know. One of those things.
Yeah, there will be a limit at some point. It's just a question of where it is.
We've seen it before. So you know, the windsurfing was super simple, and then it became dollar after dollar after dollars. You had to have all this different equipment, and that sort of people just started disappearing, and it became more extreme. Triathlon did the same thing. You know, I remember when triathlon started getting more and more techie, I thought, oh, this is the death of it coming. And, you know, I must admit, when I look at the moths, Bicey craps on about the rainbow all the time, but when I look at it, when I look at a scow moth, I think, oh yeah, how cool would one of those be? You know, I reckon I'd go a scow moth still these days. I don't even know why they don't make foiling scow moths, because that'd be just so cool.
They do. Dr. Ian Ward did it.
That was ages ago.
They're actually quite stable. They do that skeeter thing, which is sort of like a foiling scow moth. But I always wanted to sail them off, and I got distracted by. So even when foiling was not even on the radar, and I thought I wanted to build one in the garage, and that was the attraction. And I got distracted by keelboat racing at CYC and Olympic classes and all that sort of stuff. And then it wasn't until after the trials in 2000, I think Chris O and I sort of finished in '99 with the trials and went back to work full time with the CYC. And I'm thinking, what am I going to sail now? And then a cheap non-foiling moth came up, and I actually did my first moth worlds in 2001 in a non-foiling moth in Japan. After a typhoon where you couldn't see the boat in the next trough because it was 5 metre swells, which was nice and fun, and 3 knots of breeze. But
you finished 11th
story. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and became the international class president. So you obviously made an impression.
Well, you know what happened is
everyone stepped back.
Well, no. So I was sitting in the second row at the AGM and had all these issues, and because I come from sailing administration background, I'm just like, why don't you do that? Why don't you do that? Why don't you do that? At the end of it, it was like, let's vote for a president. And AMAC was sitting behind me, and he just went, this bloke. That was it. 12 years later.
AMAC, you can't trust that bloke.
AMAC. He's got a heart of gold.
Yeah,
he loves
absolutely.
the sport. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's funny. Like you were destined for a certain role in life, mate. It's just everyone trusts what you're going to say, and you've got the ideas, and yet you're not smart enough to keep your mouth closed or not turn up to the AGM. So,
yeah, one day I'll learn.
You did a bit of offshore stuff, obviously the East Coast Offshore Program in Australia. Was there any standout event you raced for you in that time? You were a tactician, I think, for a while on.
Yeah, I did a lot with Hicko. So when he was sort of involved in the sailing committee, when I was sailing, I was either coaching in the youth academy actually I started off with Dave Kellett. It's been probably my sort of career mentor for most of my life. I'm very good mates with his son Brad, and so did a lot of big boat stuff. I think we had Condor of Bermuda, with the old 80-foot Condor on Sea Arm, and did a lot of stuff like that. Basically did bow and then went back to steer and did nothing in between. And then it's quite an interesting thing to do. But I ended up with Hicko. I think he might have become chairman of the sailing committee, and I was in the sailing office. I couldn't do Hobart because I was working on it, but he took me on board to do a lot of the other East Coast stuff, and I ended up doing tactics with him on Atara with John Story, and then on Osmaid with Kevin Pearce. Great days they were. Probably Heyman used to be a really good regatta in those days. You know, like, I mean, Hamo's always a bit messy and a bit loose. But, Heyman...
Heyman was quite exclusive, wasn't it?
It was exclusive, so you got really good, you know, properly run teams.
Yeah.
So if you wanted, if you were just worried about racing in Div 1, you know, or the A division, like that was a really good regatta. And yes, it was expensive for the owners, but it was good racing and not too messy at night, if you like.
Well, it was only 20 or so boats there. So,
yeah,
memory.
Yeah. I mean, Hamo's always good.
Golf buggies are fun. Golf buggies are fun. Always fun golf buggy stories.
I remember going up the hill with. We got some other story. I remember driving up the hill, 9 sheets to the wind. I wasn't driving. Dave Ullman of Ullman Sales was driving, and John Harris is in the front seat. And I'm in the back, and I fell out of the back going up the hill.
That's never happened.
All down my face, and all the stories of Warrow driving it straight off the pier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and then the one
in lifts,
buggies in lifts, in pools. I remember sailing with the great
cockies in ovens. By the way, no cocky was harmed in that particular prank.
I remember sailing with the great man Matty Day, and he was driving the buggy up, and he came down the next day with his arm missing, and I thought, what's going on here? He says, oh yeah, buggy.
Buggy. Hey,
not bugger, buggy.
Is there a regatta you've wanted to do, like, you know, on that offshore thing? Do you look around the world and think, oh, I wish I had?
Well, I keep trying to work out how I get to do the Fastnet, but I think it happens every second year, and it tends to be in the middle of the summer when I'm in the Olympic venue, either at the games or preparing, the test events before. And you know, I almost tried to do it this year, but you just can't. The job I do now, it's hard to commit the time to do all the weekends before, for the months before, because I'm just travelling so much.
Yep.
Cows Week, I think I'll get to do. I got an invite to speak at the Royal Yacht Squadron early next year. I basically said, I think you only get them once in your life. I better accept.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So so Cows Week would be interesting. Some of the Caribbean regattas would be good to go and do. Maybe do a gunboat regatta or something like that. Quite cool.
We've got the same thoughts, mate. That sounds. All those things sound like a lot of fun. You know, that's why when you mention Hamo and Hayman Island or all that, you know, for people not Australian, it sounds so exotic. I think, you know, to go and do Hamo, where we take it all for granted. You know, Hamo. You know. So those other events sound amazing. Obviously, from the Olympic perspective, I think we need to dive more into the Olympics. Let's get on to BP's passion. With the double-hander, you know, like how big it is in the Fastnet nowadays and how big it's going to be in the Hobart and so forth. What did you think when it was originally muted as the class?
I mean, there's so much politics around this. You know, you never accept that it's going to happen until the fat lady sings, sort of thing. So we've sort of got to take it with a bit of grain of salt. And this is where Ian and I work quite closely. Like he's the director of racing. He doesn't spend much time in the Olympic program, but he deals with all the world sailing stuff. Obviously, got a reputation with offshore and dinghy sailing. And I mean, for the RYA, it was shit. Do you try and save the fin, which we won every medal since Sydney, or do you go with the flow? And typically, the RYA, it's like Big Brother. You know, if they recommend something, everyone just shoots it down, whether it's a great idea or not. So you tend to work behind the scenes, and I think in the end we supported the keelboat. But then with everything else, all the other politics that was going on in the second sort of run of it, you know, it was sort of. You could read between the lines. It was sort of doomed, and we did a lot of support with the double-handed stuff, and we still will do. You know, through the racing department, through Ian's work. The double-handed scene is massive in the UK.
It's huge. It's huge and growing still growing globally. So I don't think.
And I think it just comes back to that. You know, limits on time, hard to find crews, all the stuff we talk about with
exactly
12-foot skiffs versus moths. You know, it's. I mean, I find it interesting with the CYC where, you know, we came out, obviously I went through all the 98 stuff and the coroner's inquest and everything, and I wonder how they got past the thou shalt have 6 crew piece. But times have moved on, obviously. It's nearly 20 years later.
Don't worry, there's lots of talk going on.
But I mean, we just would have dealt with it. If it was in the games, there's another. We've got IQ falls, we've got kites, we've got all different things. The cats went foiling, and you just deal with it as best you can when it comes along. I mean, the keel. My honest personal opinion is the keel boat would have been very complicated and really expensive for the teams that were trying to win.
Sure, there's no doubt.
Did you hear the Baccarati version of how the event should be run?
Give me the short rundown.
Very, very quick.
Very quick.
Yeah, the race starts as the flame is lit, right? So everyone's lining up, ready to go, and as the arrow goes through the flame or whatever it is, whatever element they use, and then the race starts and the race finishes when the flame is doused. And it's the only event that lasts the whole Olympics. 16
days.
Yep.
Yeah, why not?
Just doing laps around the Med.
Yeah, around the Med. Well, I thought it was funny that, I mean, I have a lot of respect for Matt Allen, who is chair of the Oceanic Committee. Obviously did a lot of miles with him, with Hicko. He sailed with us with Hicko on a lot of the boats and on the Kokomo, on the Far 40 program and everything. But, the final suggestion of trying to race around in a 20-mile, imagine doing that for 16 days. You just like, I'm flat out doing 3 laps. You're like, got to take 3 apples and throw one out at each top mark. When it's time to finish.
Yeah, and all the SAR manoeuvres too. For 2 people doing SAR manoeuvres, that's not what you're chasing. So it was going to fail once it was there. I mean, we were quite into it, but I guess by extension, then, with your background. Another controversial question, you can tell me to get stuffed here if you want. Should the double-handed class be allowed to win the Sydney Hobart?
Good question. I think it's all around the autopilot question, isn't it?
That's right.
Isn't that the fundamental crux of that?
Yeah, it is. It's anyway.
I don't know. Well, I mean, not that I don't want to give an answer. I just haven't really thought about it.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? So,
yeah.
Okay. Well, then let's just get it back into the comfort zone, and then we'll take off the rails in a little while. When you started with the job, so 2017, you joined the Olympic sailing team. It's not as though the Pommy sailing team was average at the time. So you were coming into one hell of a program. Were you nervous?
No. I mean, I'm a pretty confident bloke, and I've run a number of teams and got some reasonable success. I would like to think. What's the primary goal is to keep it going, is to keep it as a top nation. That sort of drives everything, and that was the challenge. I mean, I think part of the problem of staying in the role in Australia was in losing the para part of it. I basically was just going to do the pathway stuff, which is interesting and important in itself. But my wife said to me, if you're not challenged, you're going to be horrible to live with.
Right.
So for me, it's all about taking on the challenges. So I mean,
you took on a major challenge, and obviously there's a lot of pressure from a funding perspective when it comes to running these programs, because what you earn or the amount of money you get is determined by your results. So the team, it did almost look like the Olympics weren't going to go ahead. That would have been an interesting task. I'm interested how you guys managed that. But your results, 3 gold, a silver and a bronze from memory, which I think you had targeted 4 to 7 medals, nothing based around colour. So you achieved your goals, achieved results, and the Pommy team was the number 1 team, clearly. It must be one that you've got your job locked in for another 3 years, I'm assuming, because of that outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually a permanent employee, so either I leave or they sack me. It's not a fixed term contract like some of these positions are. That's just the way they've run it for years. So, I mean, the delay to the Olympics. I mean, you think like all the mental health stuff that's going around Olympic, or just any sort of high performance athlete stuff at the moment. Like the thought of no Olympics is pretty unfathomable. For people that have spent their whole life. I mean, John Gimson's been doing it since he was 18. He's like 36 now, trying to get to the games. And you just think if they lost their chance, like what would the fallout be for them personally? so we were all in. So when the pandemic started, we had it was actually the last time I'd been back in Australia, and I think we'd been in New Zealand November 19 for the NACRA Niner Worlds, and then I flew the family out. We spent some time in Sydney and Brisbane, and then shipped them home. And we were in Melbourne. I think we had another set of Niner NACRA Worlds, Laser Worlds, Radio Worlds, and it was starting to kick off in Asia, and so we were all flying home via Asia. So I had to redirect. Had like 60 people in Australia or something. I had to redirect them via the Middle East, and then we ended up in Palma, about to do the 470 Worlds. Hannah and Ailey are about to defend their world title. And suddenly, Palma goes into lockdown, and you're trying to get 20 vans and, God knows, 80 people off the island before the ferry shut down. And then very quickly you go, this is going tits up. Let's get some gym kit into the. We'd selected our 15 sailors by then, so let's get some gym kit into their homes and out of our centralised gyms. So at least when we go into lockdown, they can do something. And then we did. UK went into 6-week lockdown. They came out fitter than they've ever been. It's quite funny. You sit in these review meetings with Olympic athletes, and they're like, "Oh, I need to get 5% stronger or fitter," and the practitioners are like, "Well, you've got to stop sailing for 4 weeks." "Oh, no, can't do that."
Go into lockdown, they come out fitter. Yeah,
exactly. So, I mean, Olympic sailing is getting more athletic. It is. It's still about equipment. It's still about sailing faster and/or less distance. The classic Emmett Lazich quote. But it is getting more physical, if you like. You just look at the classes that they've selected. But then the games went ahead. Well, then we had a target, and it was about trying to keep pushing forwards for another year towards that target. And there's plenty of curveballs for everyone along the way, including not catching COVID was the first one.
Yeah, we know it's a massive job, massive role you took on. When you applied for it, was there many other people applying for it? Number one, and what was the process of getting to that position? Because it's taking on that particular team. I mean, it's as Jordan said, it's one of the biggest in the world, and all of a sudden here you are having a go at it. There must have been other people lining up for it.
I've heard rumours of 200 applied, but I'm not certain.
That's a nice number.
I haven't really. There's no point. Why do I need to inquire? But I have. And there were some people that ended up still working for me that had applied for it and haven't got it, and some still do to this day.
Is it something that you reached out for, or how did it come your way?
Yeah, I reached out. Well, I'm good mates with Adam May. Obviously, done a couple of cups and secretary with me with the Moths, and now running all my tech stuff. And Simon Payne through the Moths, who's an ex-British 470 helm. I mean, when it first came about, and the other roles in Australia, Australia and New Zealand hadn't come to fruition, I reached out and said, "What do you think?" And Adam just said, "Look, you'd be perfect for it."
Yeah, right. Almost generic.
So that sort of encouraged me to. I spoke with a few different people that know me well, and put my hat in the ring. It was an interview process. I got interviewed by UK Sport, by the British Olympic Committee, and by the RYA, all separately, because when you take on this role, you automatically become the Olympic team leader. That's not automatic normally.
Yep.
In most countries and most sports. I basically said, "Look, I'll fly out to do the interview." I said, No, we'll do it over Skype. Did the 3 over Skype. So, right, we're prepared to give you the job. I said, "Well, before I sign, I'm going to fly to the UK and meet some people."
Yeah.
Just to make sure.
Yeah. No.
So you've been in there now for this period. What do you feel was the major focus for the first session, and what is the major focus moving towards the next Olympics?
Oh, the next one hard.
Yeah, I mean, the next ones will be a bit harder. What was the major focus? There'd been really good leadership for a long time. So not only did Sparky leave to go and run cycling, who were in a little bit of turmoil. So it's 15 years. He was leading as Olympic manager. Also, the director of racing, John Derbyshire, who had been the Olympic manager in 2000 and then stepped up. He resigned around the same time. So it was quite a change. And then Ian didn't start till 4 months after I did, because he had previous big boat commitments. So it was a little bit about settling the ship.
Yep.
and then it's about looking into the detail of where you think you need to shift your focus or whatever, and making some key appointments, some key decisions, and trying to work out where the medals are going to come from. Where's your best chance? And in this, I mean, the difference between this program and the Aussie one is we do focus on all 10 classes. It's just a question of how hard you focus on each of them, but we will always push 10 classes. Those countries like the Aussies, the Kiwis, the Dutch, who they're getting pretty close on funding now. The Aussies are probably only 25% less money, but they're only running 6 classes. We're running all 10. So in real terms, the money's negotiable, negligible, I should say. Yeah. But we'll always run all 10 because when you, as I've seen in Australia, when you don't send a rep or don't fund it, like it takes you 15 years to get the pathway back because the kids just go, I'm not going to bother going windsurfing or whatever.
Yeah, which we're seeing now that with the IQ fallers here in Australia, it's a big push. So. Look, it's the leadership role that interests me. That the fact that you've gone into that position, you mentioned it a second ago that you needed to steady the ship, or it's the leadership side of things that really interests me. As to you're the go-to man. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah. You're basically at different styles. Sparky did a really, really good job over many cycles. But he was a bit more authoritarian style. So I'm a bit more consensus building when I have the chance, when I have time to. But if I have to make a decision on the spot, you just make it. Mm-hmm. I think you just got to use your instinct and your best judgments and your experiences to make the right decisions. But also trying to build the right people around you. I've got a pretty good team around me now. That one of the things that we probably had the most experienced support team for the British team out in Tokyo. The amount of Olympics, like we've got Ian Percy, Ian Walker, Barry Edgerton on his 8th games, and just huge. The physio was part of the gold medal skeleton winning program, and just the huge amount of experience there. So building the right team around you, which is sort of what the Aussie team's done, around the Emmett Blackers, Victor sort of program. Building some really, really experienced people around them. I think that's quite important. There's lots of people that are very good individually, but when and they will work really well in the small minnow nations where they're only sending 1 or 2 people. But when you have this big team, like we will take minimum 35 people to the games. We took 44 this time. Like that's a big team to make sure it's all functioning properly. But it also helps that level of experience gives them confidence. So, you can do all the things in the world, and like in the laser, go into the games, and generally speaking, sort of eight boats are capable of being on the podium. And most of it will come down to confidence on any given day. So,
one thing you spoke about before, the funding side, 2 questions. How do you split the funding between the classes? And secondly, how does the funding in the UK sailing team compare to the other sports in the UK?
So we're the 4th highest funded sport in the UK, probably similar to Australian sailing. Pretty typical ones, rowing, cycling. I'm trying to think who the other sport is that's above us. Maybe we're the 3rd. Certainly rowing and cycling are more. But very, very similar to Australia, similar sports. I think athletics is just behind us, probably the same as it is in Australia. And it's a submission bid process with a strategic plan like it is in Australia. I mean, most of the big Western nations, they've had staff going backwards and forwards and all over the place for years, so they all are just a similar version with the local context, if you like. How do we split the funding? We do prioritise, not heavily. As I say, we're trying to run all 10, but we try to be more not so much about the class. Unless we need to really push we really need to focus to get a class up quickly. We might put more resource in, but more often than not, it's about the individuals. What do they need? And it's not so much about you just divvy it up by 10 or put more in here. It's a constant balancing of needs. That's where the sort of leadership management piece comes in, listening to people and making judgments, basically.
It's interesting. There's so many things that go into this role. I'm interested. You mentioned before you'd selected the team when you're in Palmer. That process of selecting the team, that must be the hardest part of the job, surely.
It is for all the big sailing teams, unless they're, again, a minnow nation with only one competitor, realistically. And
go Papua New Guinea.
yeah, exactly. Well, it's a good. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. It's a good Queensland coached the Papua New Guineans in Tokyo. Maybe his name's a laser sailor. Does a bit of QAF stuff anyway. It'll come to me. Yeah. Selection. My motto is that whenever you are in trials mode, your system is in chaos. So you need to be in chaos for the least amount of time.
Okay. That's an interesting theory.
And it is an anomaly. When I talk to my peers in other sports, I talk to Spicy, the director of swimming, and I'm like, mate, like if we were swimming, we'd have 3 lasers, 4 49ers, and whatever in the games, and life would be grand.
Yeah.
There'd be no infighting, big squad program, and but just the fact that we only send one, like inherently you're going to have tension, if you like. So that is probably more than making financial decisions or strategic decisions. It's how do you hold the thing together to keep pushing forwards collectively. Now, in the Aussie system, is very much if you want the funding, thou shalt work as a squad. And the British system is not quite as authoritarian as that, which gives it a bit more flexibility to be flexible to the individual athlete's needs. But you still need a squad. When the pandemic started and Brexit happened and all the rest of it, and you can't travel, you need boats to train against. They need to be pretty good, which where you end up with the Aussies and Kiwis, once they could get across the ditch, they started training together just to get some decent numbers. I don't know where I'm going with this. Start another question.
So does that basically put you in a position to choose your representative early?
Well, we have a selection committee. We have a steering group year in, year out, like the Aussies have an advisory group, and that morphs into a selection committee with a few more people added in just for governance reasons, and they come up with a policy. We've been talking about the policy since before Tokyo happened, the policy for Marseille, for Paris, and we're going to engage with the athletes at our camp in the autumn, in November, and get some feedback like we did 4 years ago, and then write a policy in the spring and issue it.
I guess that goes to the athletes, and it gives them an idea of what they've got to do over the coming years, and in the build-up. And do you think they sort of? I mean, I wouldn't know because I've never done an Olympic campaign. But do you think that the athletes sort of get a feel for who's going to be going? I mean, do you think that do you get a feeling of that? If they're going through the trial process, there's always going to be a standout performer, in each.
Well, not always. Mm-hmm. I mean, we had 2 in the top 3 in the NACRA, and we were 1-2 in the world in the 49ers and 1-2 in the Europeans for a while, and that's where you get the tensions in the squad because someone wants to pull the ladder up before the trials start, right? So I need more, he needs less, and I mean that's half the battle in the job of.
And I was going to say that's where you come in. Is that where you come in? Is that where you come in and sort of go, okay, we've got to.
Yeah. Well, yes, and with help from the steering group if I can't resolve it. But it's no different to business, right? Like business departments fight for resource in a business, right? So, they fight for budget share. So it's not too dissimilar to running a big business in some respects.
Well, it is a big business.
Yeah, well, it's a medium-sized business. It's 20, whatever it is, £5.5 million a year or something.
One of the interesting things is, we've got this, being in Australia, we know that we're close, but your team is the team, but there's an ominous looming country that just hasn't got its shit together since 84, 88 sort of thing.
Well, they keep voting for people like Trump, so what do you expect?
So what the question is, like how do the US fix their problems? Do you want to weigh in on that, or just let them find it?
It'd be interesting to see how KR goes. I mean, I think Malcolm might have been good there had they got the money, but they didn't, and so they let him go because it was probably pretty costly.
Right.
I've seen a lot of stuff on Scuttlebutt and Anarchy lately about they got too much money and maybe the girls because they get less. It's a bit better. Maybe that's the case. I mean, pro sailing, the amounts people get paid in the US are pretty significant, and so maybe they lose the talent to that because the lure's too great. I don't know. Bicey might know a bit more. I know what some of the US coaches who want to come and work for me want to get paid today, and I'm like, sorry, mate, not happening.
Wow.
You want to come work for us? This is how much it is.
Yeah. Wow.
So, well, big country. So got the tyranny of distance stuff that Australia's got, but equally got 300 and plus whatever million people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I mean, there's something there. I think, when they go back to when they were really good, we were still really in amateur sailing Olympics. It hadn't gone professional. So there must be something in how they haven't got through that professionalisation of sailing. I mean, other sports have gone professional before that. Athletics, certainly in the States, well before that. But maybe it is that sailing hasn't quite got to that.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's a strange one,
The geographical one, just the sheer size, that's come up several times to try and coordinate, bring everyone together.
But we've got the same size in Australia.
Wernie lives in Perth and the sailing centre's in Sydney.
Yeah.
But we've got 4 or 5 key sailing areas in Australia, whereas the US, it's just peppered up and down the east and west coast, right? So
yeah, true. I mean, it makes me think of Singapore. The stuff we did with Singapore was like just amazing. What we did in 9 or so years, it was always starting from a low base to, and had they kept going, it might well have ended up with an Olympic medal this time round or next time round.
And of course, in Singapore, it takes so long to travel from one side to the other as well.
This was my point. It's 40 miles that way and 30 miles that way. So my point being is because there's no proliferation of classes in Singapore. The federation controls all the classes. So if you're not supported by the federation, you don't exist. Therefore, everyone gets narrowed into certain classes, and the place is so small, you can make change really quickly.
Yep.
And it's a very complex. It's a benevolent dictatorship of a society. So you tell people what to do and they do it.
Yep.
But it's got other challenges as to why it may never make it to the top, because there's no middle class wages, and so most of the sailors are very well educated, parents are doctors, whatever, and it's like you get the tap on the shoulder, right? You're going to earn 30 grand a year for the rest of your life, or 300.
Yeah,
go and earn 300. So they've got other issues, but yeah. So they didn't have tyranny of distance, and they didn't have proliferation of classes. Which, if you think Australia, UK, US probably have the proliferation of classes, and they've got the tyranny of distance piece. I think Bicey's comment about Bicey or BP around, in Australia there's some key, basically the capital cities, and there's not much outside of that. Whereas, in the States, it's God knows how many cities with big sailing populations.
Like in my head, take Sydney Harbour on a Saturday afternoon, or take Hailing Island on a Saturday afternoon. Boats everywhere.
Yep.
All refined into one small area. It's going to produce good yachties, right?
Yeah, but then there is this other thing. So, there's 1,400 yacht clubs. So some numbers, right? I think there's 1,400 yacht clubs in the UK.
Well, this is good info, because we're doing a little study on how much beer we can sell.
That's exactly right.
380 clubs in Australia.
Yep. Exactly.
336.
Yeah.
We've done the maths.
Yeah, we've been building models here for selling beer.
There you go. Well, so 25 million people in Australia, 65 million in the UK. So already there's more clubs per capita. But interesting, when you do a map of where some of our team sailors come from,
Middle of the nation.
It's not, sailing is very South Coast based generally, but where they come from, where they grew up from, is very much in the Midlands or in Scotland. Quite a lot of the team are from locks in Scotland where it's bloody freezing in winter. And I go back to a sort of a theory where, years ago we talked about Nathan, Tom, and slingers and all those sort of guys. And there is a bit of a hypothesis going around about what makes you a good sailor. And
being a redhead.
One of the, well, not being a ranger. Nate's not a ranger.
It's all right. Keep going. I'm only stirring.
Anyway. But, the whole lake thing, so not being able to pick where the breeze is coming from. So growing up, just getting used to adapting to the breeze as a kid, sailing on lakes. And so a lot of UK dinghy sailing is on gravel pits, basically, or or dams built for water supply in the middle of the country. Not a lot of it's on the coast except for down the south. So I think, you could argue with that sort of previous generation of Australian sailing team athletes where they, Gosford for slingers and the Lake Macquarie for Nath or Will Ryan, or, Rivers with Tide.
Yeah.
It's an interesting hypothesis. But
I also wonder, to extend that one though, I wonder if it's the shifting winds that's an element of it, but also how easy it is to go sailing in those circumstances. If you're a parent and your kid's just going out the backyard and onto a body of water that they can't disappear over to New Zealand on, you've got a lot more confidence in just letting them go. So the access and opportunity to go sailing, I think, is also an element of that. Maybe
yes, and I agree.
So,
but then I also have a hypothesis for UK sailors. They produce, especially in big boats, a whole lot of very good navigators. Ever tried getting around the Solent just on a normal day? There's so much.
All the tide.
The tide, the banks, all those sorts of things. And because the weather is, you get the odd beautiful summer's day, but generally it's bloody cold. So there's no fear to line up to do a fastnet race if it's going to be 35 knots and freezing cold.
It's a normal day.
So as far as producing hard sailors, it's a good breeding ground.
Yeah, to get to that level, you're pretty battle hardened.
Yeah.
If you're not hard enough, you've given the sport up by then.
Mate, we're getting real close on our time, but I do want to ask a key critical question is, what do you do for the next Olympics? How do you make sure the UK team's number one? And two, what are you going to feel like when the Australian team beats you? Are you torn?
No, you wed yourself to the team that you're leading.
Absolutely.
Of course you do. You wouldn't get out of bed every day otherwise.
No.
And I've got some British heritage, so it's not like I was offered other teams for a lot of money, some other North American teams to go and work for them back in 2016 and chose not to. Marseille will be a bit different for the bigger teams because they, for most of Europe, it will feel like a home games. Like Japan, I think back to Beijing when I was with the Singaporeans, it was pretty foreign for Western nations competing in that environment and getting used to it. I know, slingers basically never got used to it in Beijing or Qingdao we're in.
Yeah.
Marseille will feel more like a home games to almost every European nation. So anything that the big teams can throw at it is probably a little bit negated. I think the challenges of the new classes, we're going head to head at the moment with the IQs, kites and the IQ foils with the French. The French are going to be pretty strong.
Yep.
With the home games and IQ worlds, we were 4 in the top 8, but never been done before in any Olympic windsurfing class, but the French guy still won.
Yeah.
I think it will be more challenging for the big established teams, if you like, because all of the bits of, getting your own nice accommodation and all the other peripheral stuff that just makes it work, don't have as great an effect, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still a boat race.
Yeah.
It's like you still got to sail faster or less distance. It's a simple game.
Have you got a plan in place to counteract the fact that the French will change the rules after the race starts, or will sink one of the boats that are beating them?
The French and the Brits have been at war for centuries, right? It's fine. I get on really well with the French team leader. We do train. Actually, we've been training with the French windsurfing team for a while. We've been running parallel programs for 2 years, Project 24 and the 20 Games team. Mm-hmm. Now what we're doing is bring it all back together as one unit, whereas it's been 2 parallel programs for a couple of 24 months now. I know we say it facetiously, will they sink the boats or call them OCS, but there's enough rules and regulations around that to stop any national bias in
No, I don't genuinely believe that's going to... I was only having a bit of a laugh, It's easy to... Outside.
Princess Sophia is a different story. You could start 3 lengths over and be let go, but don't use that for selection. Tip number 1.
Yeah. My final observation for me, it's interesting. You talked about Peter Condy going to head the AIS. I've got a mental blank. Your guy going to run US cycling. John Bircham.
Parking. Yeah.
John Bircham went over to take over Australian swimming as the chairman in that. What is it about sailing that makes us settle all the other organisations down?
It's slightly different for everything. Like Peter Condy's got some really strong business consulting background, which is why I took a career step back to go and work for him. I thought I'm going to learn some pretty good strategic things from him.
He's well paid these days.
Well, the guy before him was well paid too, but that's government. It's not set by him. It'd be nice to earn that much though. Maybe it's the complexity of the sport. You're effectively running 10 sports.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Someone once asked me just after Rio, would you like to go and run athletics? And I'm like, man, it's like herding 50 cats. I have enough trouble herding 10.
Yeah.
So, so maybe it's the complexity. It's a bit of the equipment. It's a bit of, the Sparky going to cycling, went to British cycling, who did quite well. Australian cycling, not so well with a Brit running it, who's now left.
Not well at all.
You got the equipment. No, not well at all. But he resigned before the games. So, you got the equipment, you got the human, you got the
all the fun. It's basically like a big boat campaign. You've got all these people you need to manage. You need to manage all the elements. You need to manage the money. You need to manage the owner or the stakeholders. So there are direct parallels.
Yeah.
Well, so
you got a dynamic field of play.
You
ever-changing.
You were chief technical officer of the race. You ran everything that went in the water in the Volvo, mate. You should be running, maybe they should have you running the US program.
I'll give Paul a call.
Good luck, mate. Just make sure he's got the checkbook, Phil, before you sign up.
Yeah. No, we'll go and run the Canadian program. It'll be a lot more fun, I reckon.
I got asked to do that.
Yeah,
the one
I'll
I
work
knocked
that out.
back, but for a lot more money than I get paid now.
Yeah.
I chose not to.
I've got one final question from my side, Mark.
Sure.
So Ben's got his Sail GP team.
Mm.
Yep.
He wants to take a whole heap of your athletes with him. Do you let him? Is there risk of injury? Is there...
There is, but then we let Dylan and Stu go and steer and do and guide the thing the first year, and that was a conscious decision to give them some outside exposure to professional sailing because both of them hadn't done a lot of it, and to give them money to the campaigns. You always want to spend more, buy more sails, buy more boats, and that just gave them the confidence that they had enough resource in their campaign to do well. So it was half a mental thing, if anything else. And then with Ben, Hannah's in there now, you'd almost bet your house she's going to steer the Women's America's Cup for them for sure, right? Because they've all got to run a team in that, and she'll be good in that. She's good because she can do the tactics, right? With some of the other ones are rather on the grinder or trying to learn how to fly the thing. We had Ben Cornish left just before the trials to go and be an Ineos Rebel. But then he came back and did 3 months with Giles after the Cup to help him push forward. So it's a little bit of give and take. You got to give these guys some opportunity. The biggest thing that concerns me in our sport is how do I find the opportunities for the girls? Like the guys, they're a dime a dozen, and it's just a matter of where their ego is versus where they actually get to. Not everyone's going to get into a cup team because there's just not that many positions. Like I have 70-odd athletes in the team. I only take 15 to the games. So not everyone's going to get to the games. But so that's just a fact of life for the guys in their pro career. But, how do we get more opportunity for the ladies? Because there's some pretty good sailors in there.
For sure.
Yeah, so some of these things like the Sail GP bit, You know, it's probably not as well thought out as it could be, but it's a start, you know.
Yeah.
It's happening. It is happening. Obviously, the Volvo did that, and it continues with the ocean race.
Emily Nagel works for us now, so she's doing a bit of work. Emily,
good old Em.
We love Emily. She's a good friend.
Doing a bit of data stuff, working under Adam May. So she floats around in Fall Town, as Weymouth is known. All the mothies are.
She'd love that. Nagel.
Yeah.
The moth froth.
Moth
alive and well.
Yeah, they're like all my 49er lads. Oh, you got to get a moth. I said, why do I need to? I just use yours.
Yeah. Hey, you got to go.
Would you like some more Olympic funding? Give me a moth.
You'll be wind dinging soon. That's the next Olympic class. We reckon.
Yeah. No, and it's funny. You know, we pick kites, we pick falling windsurfers, and now the sport's already
gone.
Moved on.
We've discussed that. At length. We said we think it's happened. It's definitely happened. So the last question is the worst question you ever get asked in an interview when you're looking for a job is, where do you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years?
Still running an Olympic sailing team.
Good. Yep.
There you go.
Yep.
Perfect.
Fantastic.
Well, here's to a whole lot more Royal Mail gold letterboxes around the country. Painted out the tradition of painting the local letterbox gold in front of a gold medalist's house.
Yeah.
He's still alive and well. So here's hoping. Best of luck for Marseille, and we'll be keeping a close eye on it.
Sure. Thanks, Pricey. Don't forget, there's a bed for when you come over to take over the Land Rover Appreciation Society.
There we go. Get it in there. Hey, Mark, great to catch up with you, mate. And, yeah, good luck.
All right. Thanks, BP. Thanks, John.
Cheers, Robert.
See you, bud.
Yes.
Pretty smart bloke, our Robbo.
Yeah.
That definitely comes across in more ways than one.
Yep.
And one thing actually I didn't mention there, but just worth mentioning, serious, just a shout out to Mark and condolences with the loss of Matty Day a couple of years back, who was his best man at his wedding and a good mate of all of ours, actually, and a lot of people who listen to the show as well. And we all had some pretty good times, as Mark alluded to. We held up that bar down at the CYC a couple of times. Several times for that matter, all together. So, dedicate that little interview to our mate, Matty. So, Mark, what do you reckon there, guys? Like, they're strong. They're still strong. I was interested. We all assume the funding for British sailing team is through the roof compared to everyone, but the comparison that he did,
I was shocked.
It's quite relative, I guess.
Interesting.
It's interesting that
they got a lot of people going sailing.
Yeah, but it's interesting that he sort of mentioned that it's not evenly distributed. It's distributed when required. It's an interesting point as well. And he also then went on to sort of state that he let the guys go and say the SailGP last year, which would have given a little bit of income, which no doubt they would have personally said, well, we need this, we need that, and they would have been able to support themselves a bit more. So that's a good thing. But we have that here to an extent. One thing we didn't bring up was, we talked about it with people like Victor and Blackers winning all these gold medals, because he's got a fair old list too.
I was just thinking about, we should do a little number on the ones that we've interviewed, how many gold medals.
Oh that's an interesting one.
Can we actually bring ourselves into that by interviewing these people? Do we be a part of a gold medal?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, no worries.
All right.
Yeah. What I was just going to ask, boys. I love the concept of painting the letterbox gold in your local letterbox gold. I mean, what could you paint in Australia or wherever you are in the world? Just think what you could paint in wherever you are in the world. I don't know what you'd paint here in Australia. Like, would you paint the local kangaroo gold or something?
Well, who's going to bring it up?
Well, I think there's a couple of options.
What's that?
One, we could create the big gold medal. We're quite famous for the big crayfish,
big gold medal.
Big lobster, or the big
banana, the big pineapple.
Yeah,
up your way. The big pineapple's up your way.
We can mount it basically up in Hamilton.
Yeah.
Mark also mentioned about something about my old Land Rover. I'm thinking painting that gold. We could paint a Defender gold.
Yeah.
We could paint the Barcarati Express gold.
Oh,
You know, the Defender one works, Spicey, because they're all broken down. So whichever broken down Defender is just sitting on the street nearest.
They're literally like a letterbox. Just park out in front of people's houses, can't move.
just go down to Bunnings, have a sausage and some
Just
onion, get some
gaining value
spray
day
paint.
by day. Oh,
Could the Bunnings sausage
The
sizzle
Bunnings
nearest
sausage-
you be
Oh.
painted gold?
Oh, I nailed it.
Wow.
that is a
Bunnings,
ball
the bun.
tightener.
All right, I've done one thing.
Absolute
I've done one thing in 3 years of Barcarati.
I think we've
I've just
found it,
excited the
BP.
boys. Thanks.
Yeah.
We found it.
I knew I was here for something.
Got to make sure the onions are on the bottom, though.
But
Yeah, you can't slip over on the onions.
the Bunnings sausage sizzle nearest the medalist gets painted gold. I love it. I think
The
it's-
actual, you go there, they have the Bunnings awning or whatever you
Yeah,
call it.
The 4x2
It's
tent from
gold.
Bunnings.
I
It's
tell you
gold.
what, if we don't get a phone call from Bunnings through the week saying we are in on this
I'm ringing
program-
Joe Bunnings
Joe Bunnings, yeah,
right now,
yeah,
telling him about this.
cousin Reg Bunnings.
Yep. Reginald, yep. Give him a call.
Oh dear. All right. Any club events this week?
Club events.
There's a couple
Maybe
of events.
It's not necessarily a club event, but we were sent some information that the notice of race for the Vendée Globe has been released.
Yeah, it's a club. It's a
Well,
club.
there's several clubs involved.
Yeah.
So how long have we got till that kicks off?
It's the same year as the Olympics, isn't it? 24?
24.
Yeah.
So they're ahead of
November
time.
24. It's when it's on. It's on.
But no, it's good.
A busy year.
Exactly. Well, it's a busy year actually for everyone preparing for the Route to Run at the moment.
Yeah.
So that is gonna give some good viewing.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to seeing specifically what these IMOCAs are doing, what they've been doing behind the scenes with the foils, because that evolution, that's not stopping.
No.
Right.
Love it. I mean, Apivia's got it worked out at the moment. If you're watching that thing, she is smoking at the moment. So interested. There's so much good stuff going on. It's such a busy week. I think we'll just throw into our favourite segment, Hot Time with Bicey.
Yeah. Now, gents, I must apologise. I was going to get you get a jingle that we can play.
Oh,
I've got one of my media men onto it. One Harry Fisher. He's going to create a little jingle for us for this particular segment. Or what are you doing? I can see you trying to do something with your toy over there.
He's got his hand on the red or yellow or green or blue button.
okay, ready?
All
Let's
right.
just use this.
Well, Dak, here's the deal. I'm the best there is, plain and simple. I mean, I wake up in the morning, I piss excellence.
What time was by?
He's a ginger.
Gents.
He's a ginger.
Yeah, jeez. 5 topics this week.
Right.
Now, I'm going to put a bit of a time limit on it because you two crap on about stuff a little bit too much. So if you hear the horn, we need to
I haven't
start
got a
wrapping
horn,
things
boys.
up.
I haven't got a horn set up.
Well, it's a visual thing.
Okay.
All right. All right. First, and this is your favourite, BP. You can both answer. During the week, the Etchells interim report came out that's being led by Grant Simmer, Tom Schnackenberg, Sean Ritson,
What
a
a
couple of others.
Len Imus,
Len
Casey
Imer,
Brown.
did it tell us anything new, or is it just buying time due to it's going to be hard to find a solution?
what are rituals?
Yeah.
Yes, it's buying time.
Yeah,
basically.
we've seen that information before, but
Sorry, Jordan.
I was just going to say we've seen that information before. The interesting one though is physical toe testing is underway. You know, not in the tank, but actual physical toe testing. But that methodology is rife with variables. So
With 500 metre long 5 mil dynamometer.
toe lines, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
No,
So they
stretch,
didn't get-
no stretch there.
It is interesting because
I like the what they're trying to do. They gather the data. You can see that's happening, right? And trying to gather as much data as possible in any means possible Be pretty hard chucking an Etchell into a test tank, I'd imagine.
I got to tell you, boys, there for a while, when I first did the first Volvo I was involved with, I was just getting day rates. So I'd come back to Australia and I had to earn some money and I'd work on tugs a little bit. And we did a long tow, and I was just driving the tug behind, the support tug sitting behind. So I was behind a tug pushing a major load, and we were towing for hours and hours and hours. So I just sat and I moved to different spots in the wake, so I was more than 500 metres back, but I just kept moving to different spots in the wake to see how it affected.
Prop wash.
Yeah, and just
big, huge.
Yeah, found the exact perfect spot to sit. So, it can have an effect, like where you sit when you're towing. Like it can actually have an effect. Yeah. So
I'm sure as part of the protocols though, like you're sitting in the exact same spots, the same towboat and all that sort of stuff.
It's interesting. But basically the gist of it is this group is trying to move to the whole goal is, can they reshape the 11 boats so that those boats all have value again? That's the gist of what they're trying to do. And so they're trying to quantify...
Increase the drag is what they're trying to
because
work out.
Their argument is from the scans that the Mold 11 boats are slightly fuller in the bow and the stern and narrower in the middle. So lower drag is what the argument is. It's in a scale of... It's tiny scale, but basically they're just seeing what actual effect it is. And by just doing putting a correction into it or something like that, it doesn't work consistently depending on wind conditions. So it's whether they can reshape it. So it's interesting. If you read the information that came out, I don't know, where did we get it from, boss? Where did we get it from?
No, that was shared with all Etchell's members.
Yeah.
And I was sent... It was probably sent to me at least 8 times from different people.
Yeah,
keep it coming in though. No, it's good.
And we've had some few heated discussions. There's been some heated discussions been going on all week about it.
But, BP.
Yeah, I'm sure the WhatsApp groups will be going
nuts,
going mad.
Aren't all discussions with you heated, my friend?
No.
Speaking of which, time to move on and move on to your second most passionate. Maybe not second most, probably your most passionate subject here.
I'm going to jail.
During the week, it was found by the international jury to give redress to the mini fleet or the boats within the mini fleet that stopped during the first leg of the mini transat. And they all received 24 hours redress. Thoughts?
Lots of them.
Yeah. Let me couch the conversation. So this is amazing, right? This is amazing. A lot of thought has gone, I don't know if any thought went into it, but basically it has caused a major response, and there are a lot of commentators on social media making a lot of allegations. We don't have... Yeah, we've got to... I'm intrigued as to the response. I'm not sure what the logic is. What would you say the overwhelming opinion is, BP, in terms of the response from, say, what you read on social media? Because you're so passionate about this. This is right in your wheelhouse, isn't it?
The response from the general public is that it's tragic.
Yep.
It's tragic for the race, and it's tragic for the people who chose to continue on and have effectively been penalised for doing so.
So that's Melvin Fink and Christian
Cargill in particular. We know that the 4 protos got in time. There was no change in the top 4 positions there. So that was...
so what actually happened?
The actual...
They've given 24 hours back to
nine.
Gone.
As in what physically happened?
No.
The international jury awarded a 24-hour redress to all the boats that stopped.
It was protested by 19 participants that the information given by the race committee at the time was not clear as to what to do.
That was the finding. That was the
that was the finding. But that's what that's what the protest was about. And they went in thinking that they were told to go in, when effectively they weren't told to go in. Now, the big thing here is that effectively the decision to continue or not to continue is on the onus of the skipper.
That's correct.
In the
That's
end.
what's written in the rules.
That's what's written in the rules. Now, at any one stage, there's no where that the race committee can effectively say, go here. Because, you might not be near there. You might not. There's a whole heap of things.
Well, there is.
To play.
In the rules, the race committee can abandon the race. It can, it can shorten course. It can do things, but it's not, you've got to go. That's not written in the rules.
Correct.
What 17 points, clause 17.7 in the notice of race. Interesting part here.
Yep.
Any advice or information supplied by the OA, e.g. weather forecast or advice consequent to boat inspection, is given purely indicative.
Correct.
It remains the only responsibility of the skipper.
Correct.
To check the predictable weather conditions and his or her equipment.
Correct. So
that's one part of it. Yep. So, but I thought it's bloody tricky one, because if something like this does not exist, does it just throw safety completely out of the window?
The other question I have, was it a world sailing? Is that an international jury?
I've been Googling international jury for the Mini Transat.
Yep.
And trying to find out who the jury members are and whether this is under world sailing, or not.
Because if not,
yeah, no, that's what's going to come out next. So we need.
Okay.
There is a probe, but that's beside the by. What you've got is young Melvin Fink and Christian Cargill. Christian Cargill's come back and released his own statement saying that he did not stop for weather. It was a technical issue that he had to go in and fix, and then came back out.
Because he stopped for like 3 hours or something, didn't he?
Correct. So so he was not a part of the 24-hour redress, which is why he, if it's affected him, it puts him in the lead by, X amount. If he had said, yeah, I went in because I heard that, but then I decided to go back out, but I still get a 24-hour redress. How long were these people in port for? 24 hours? Who knows? This is where the question gets really messy.
Because with this event, it's 2 legs and it's your cumulative time, isn't it? That's the other critical thing to understand. Yep, keep going back.
Correct. It is very much cumulative, and this is where it gets very messy, because effectively what's happened is Christian Cargill sailed on and diligently sailed the leg in a way that you'd expect to if you're doing a yacht race. Now, let's put this into context. It's a yacht race. They've been training for 2 years. Most of them, some of them for 4. And they get this thing happen. They sailed, Christian Cargill and Melvin Fink, love that name, sailed down the coast of Portugal and had a blinder, along with the other 4 protos, right? Fantastic to watch, was exciting while all these other guys are going and hiding in port. Fair enough, that's their decision.
Or
that's
parking
the key.
it on the beach.
That is their decision. Yeah, or just park it on the beach. That is their decision to do so. And then all of a sudden they've been given 24 hours. And let's just think about Christian Cargill. Sailed the ray down there, put his knowledge to the test, tested the elements, tested the boat, did everything you want to see in a yacht race. Comes second, has now been delegated to 13th. Now, that, to me, doesn't make sense.
And lost 24 hours, basically.
And lost 24 hours on his overall time.
He'll never be able to get back. So everyone else has gained 24 hours. He's lost 24. Look, the answer is simple. It's wrong. It's completely wrong.
Well, I'm glad you said it, Jordan, because if I said it, it would sound biased.
It is completely wrong. It's not. There's no grounds. It
100% agree.
Yeah,
it's totally the wrong decision. I'd love to see the jury's report on it, and we'll do a bit more digging for the exact reasons and why. But yeah, I think we all agree.
So can I, just for fun, ask a simple question?
Can you please do it for fun? Because my blood is boiling.
For simple, it's Melvin,
mate.
Melvin
don't
or Christian
get so
French?
Emotionally attached.
Melvin or Christian French?
And no. Was Richard Hewson French in 2013?
Is the international jury international?
That's exactly what I'm asking the question, because there's consequence that could flow from this is that if it's not a World Sailing International jury, then World Sailing itself will, if they've got any money left or any energy left, will maybe investigate, and there's something going to this. But surely, I mean, there's just in Australia we have something called the pub test. We call it, if it does it stack up in the pub test, right? It doesn't stack up in the pub test. You know, when you're sitting at the pub having a chat, which is effectively like what we do here, it just doesn't stack up in the pub test. And
this is that drunk bloke in the corner who's just tipped his beer all over the floor and smashed the glass.
Yeah,
that's the way I.
Morally, Melvin and Christian, we're all going to adjust our times when we see the results at the end, and we're going to celebrate the races with those guys based on the times that we adjust.
Just looking at it, Melvin still stays in the lead by an hour.
Yeah, I know, but
he finished 25 hours in front of the person.
Yeah,
and he's in the lead by an hour.
We're going to award the Barcarati Mini Transat results. We'll publish those.
Love it.
May or may not get their prize in the post.
and a stubby cooler. And a stubby.
Right.
We'll send you a stubby cooler, Melvin.
Minis. Done. And we all agree.
Oh, what about the soot on all the decks? How much is soot's getting?
From the volcano.
Yeah. You've got to go and have a look at this. If you haven't seen that, go and check that those images out.
Yeah, Irina, I shared Irina Gravac's post I think somewhere there. So have a look at that. She's sweeping it off with a broom. It is quite cool. And actually, the boat looks quite cool.
Yeah, very.
But anyway.
Third topic, New York Yacht Club pulling out of the AC. Do we really care? Many yacht clubs, but probably not many with that amount of money. But what I found interesting is a little injustice to the Stars and Stripes sailing team, because they literally found out an hour before that went out.
Yeah,
this is just taking my bat and ball, and I'm going home.
That's it.
That's just dummy spit. Yeah,
that's it. My main concern is for our mates who are losing an income. You know, got to go and hunt for work.
It's not the end for them, though. It's just going to make it a shitload harder, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
For the Stars and Stripes team, yeah.
Well,
they were going to represent.
The vibe I'm getting from all of the information that's coming back on, of course, the leader of information, Facebook, which is just all true.
Yeah.
Is that people are now looking at this as a laughing stock. It's a joke. And people are just taking this as entertainment.
What, the America's Cup or just the New York
America's Cup in general?
No,
mind games.
Yeah,
mate.
That's part of the fun.
Is 100% over this.
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah. No. This is America's Cup's not a joke. There's just playing the game. There's a lot of very smart, very rich people pulling strings and playing games.
Put it this way:
it's the biggest chess game in the world, mate.
And
like it.
Team New Zealand would just be rubbing their hands together. Imagine New York Yacht Club pulls out with the resources and the money that they have access to. That's just taken a potential really high-end competitor off the books.
Yeah.
Whomever that may be.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, Larry's coming back with Pete and Blair. So
and Bertarelli with Australia.
Yeah, and Bertarelli.
That's right.
Okay, so what was the conclusion there from our point?
Do we care?
No.
Okay,
good.
I love that. Yeah, go.
Fourth one, I was chatting to a few guys up in Sydney this week, and there's been a bit of consultation going on. Jeez, BP, you're into bloody everything here.
Oh, God. What now?
By the CYC, the exact stance on where the double-handers are for the Sydney to Hobart. They've put a little committee together. They've interviewed a lot of people. Do double-handers win IRC?
Yes. There's no debate.
No debate.
It's childish in the extreme to not allow it.
Well, I think the due diligence has been done in the right process with the yacht club basically going for it. But you don't have to look much further than just outside the borders to
Can I just take that one step further, Bicey?
Go on.
I was interviewed with Dave Kellett and Peter Shipway and the team, and basically went through the whole thing. I'm obviously not an opinion cause, but my main area of concern was making sure that people that take on the Sydney Hobart in a double-handed format, and this was my opinion, the double-handed side of things is fine, but the Sydney Hobart double-handed is another element. Mm-hmm. There's another element of safety. And that was all I was saying. Look, the autopilot or no autopilot, that whole discussion is not even worth talking about.
No, you're right.
But because, I don't even want to go there. But the actual thing of going into a Sydney Hobart, because from 1998, as Mark Robinson mentioned, I think it was while we were off air, that it was put to the thing that there had to be 6 people on the boat. Now, all of a sudden, we're going double-handed. That has been talked about. So racing that race double-handed, there has to be a real tight level of experience out of those 2 people.
Oh, okay. So there's got to be a qualification piece. Yeah.
I think that it has to be really, really.
So BP, in the Hobart, in this discussion, did it come up that we could put a radio call out and get them all to come into Eden and have a relax for 24 hours and then get the time put back on? Is that allowed?
We could bring them up and say, because you're double-handed, can you go into Eden and wait for a storm to go through? Yeah. And then we'll give you the 24 hours back.
Yeah. So that's going to happen?
Apparently you can.
Oh, good.
I'll put this one to you.
Yeah.
Next year, a PVA comes down. Sales at double-handed. And they've got the super duper autopilot who could probably steer better than anyone.
Yeah.
Do they win the IRC overall?
Well, it depends on their rating, doesn't it?
Yeah, no,
they're using the autopilot that's cost.
Could you imagine
that Safran have spent millions and millions of dollars on developing?
Could you imagine?
They're going to basically be able to sail that boat well above its rating due to that.
Could you imagine the rating of an Amoka boat?
Yeah, but Bryce is saying that.
Yeah, I know.
But I don't know. It is a good point. Because
where does it start and stop? I know we're talking about purpose, like smaller boats, which are built for double-handed, and some which are just who have been upgraded for double-handed, if you will. But where does it start and stop in regards to being able to put it into?
Let's just put it into context. For example, the FAR X2 option for autopilot system is obviously what's available off the market now. It's a H5000. B&G with the motion sensor, which is the top of the range you can get. And if you're looking at doing this seriously, you're with all your plotters and all your bits and pieces, you're no short of $25,000 to be completely set up, right? That's what the base of it is, right? And that gives you everything you want to safely. Let's say put the word safely in there as well, because it's not a matter of getting a Raytheon 10-degree, 1-degree autopilot arm that sits on you, that attaches to the side of the boat and go, I've got to go 10 degrees higher, I've got to go 1 degree lower, I've got to go 10 degrees higher. Those old things. These things have got to be able to sail your boat, and that's an important point, which I raised with them as well. It's not a matter of just having an autopilot. It's got to be something that can actually get you out of trouble if you are in trouble.
So what I'm going to do, because the X2 rates so well, is it going to be a definite winner in the race? I'm going to spend $250,000 and put the bee's knees autopilot on, and it's going to give me 5% more performance, and I'm easily going to win the race.
Well, let's see it happen.
That's the question I'm asking.
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess
it is a good question
because technology is going to evolve.
The next question on top of that is we're going to do it with no people on board. Where does it stop then?
Oh, love it. My question to you, Bicey, is if you had a good downwinder and a Pivia was here, would it make the corner? Would it just keep slingshot past?
Just forget.
I'm already
Going so
there.
far.
No, it's like you just, oh, hang on, I'm just going to go boil the kettle from a freeze dried.
Yeah, and you bang into
we
an
gone
iceberg
past
bang into an iceberg in Antarctica.
Yeah, I guess.
So I do look on with interest here. Reality is no one's going to spend the 250 grand on an autopilot, I don't think. So it's not a real thing, but there will be trickle down from what's being developed in IMOCA world into the rest of the that world. And actually, who knows, maybe it will at some stage.
Maybe they put a veto power. It's just in the sailing instruction, there's a veto power on the level of technology that your autopilot can have. And so they don't write it because the rule will change. They just say that the race committee will have the right to...
An addendum.
It'll have to pass the pub test.
Yeah, pass the pub. It's just got to be fair. Just be fair. Like, if the autopilot is slower than a human hand, then I'm comfortable with it. If it's faster than a human hand, then I disagree with it. It's
Bruce Lee?
Bruce Lee. That's it. Yeah, who's human hand? That's a good point.
Moving on. Now,
So hang on, before we move on, so we're all for it?
I still think the double hand has got to win.
Yep. Okay.
Double hand definitely got to win.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But yeah, where do you draw the line?
Yep. Okay. Good one.
So
Nice.
just write the rule accordingly. Yep.
All right. Now, this could possibly be one of our biggest debates on Barkarati, this last one.
Wow.
Due to COVID pandemic and all those sorts of things, we're all getting around with masks on. Do you wear the blue on the inside or the outside?
Blue goes on the outside.
Blue goes on the outside, and I got told that when I went and got vaxxed.
Yeah, my wife.
My daughter, because I had white on the outside. No, Dad, you got to wear the blue on the outside.
Yeah, no,
So
don't
then, all dinner, we're Googling, and it's if you've got a disease or some sort that you don't want to be transferred, that is when you flick it the other way.
That's all right.
It's got dual
Depending on the ins and
I didn't
outs
know that.
of what gets
Dual
in and what
purpose.
goes out. Yeah.
dual
Wow.
purpose.
We learn lessons.
Kind of like.
Well,
a
I had to dig myself out of a hole against my 9-year-old daughter.
Yeah, she's smart.
Justify it.
God, they're smart. Those 9-year-olds.
Oh, yeah.
I've got.
She's going to cause you trouble over the years, mate. I tell you, she's going to hold you accountable, and you're not the sort of bloke that can be held accountable.
Yeah, correct.
Well, I'm going through that too with my 8 and 11. So we're in this together.
I'm for banding you blokes. You two are idiots.
All right.
We know that. You tell us every week.
Done and dusted.
All right.
Well done, Bicey.
All right. Very cool. What else we got?
Oh, I don't know.
Sail GP, the Canadians have joined the team.
Excellent.
I wonder how they're going to go. Like we crap on about the Poms and all their gold medals getting caught and stuff. How are they going to go with their clubs on the Canadian boat?
Running across in the snowshoes. That's it. All those jokes.
Yeah.
So we called it a few months ago. We said there was going to be 10 teams, and that's it. We said that we knew that there was a 10th team coming, so we had this. We just didn't dob it who it is. But the question I have is, does Australia have enough sailors to go into all the 10 boats?
Maybe we need to come out of retirement, Jordan. Because
oh mate, no way. Imagine us on one of those boats, just step straight off the back.
come out of the. Don't forget you're attached, so you'd be dragging off the back.
Speed when you just pop your head out of the booth. I mean, I don't get that feeling driving a Land Rover of the apparent wind speed getting too high. But imagine that you just pop out, blow off the back.
That's cool.
So an observation is Sail GP going to be basically one of the biggest brand in itself, commodities in yachting that in our lifetime is building itself into that.
It is. And it's been well designed and run around that. So I think IMG brought in half of the program early on. Yeah. The Canadian team, there's actually no team announced. It's just there's an actual owner basically, Fred Pye. I've never heard of the guy. I don't know if you guys have. But he's
Pisey.
Pisey, yeah, Pisey.
Yeah. Oh, right. Oh, sorry, I thought you said Fred Pye. I only know him as Pisey.
Pisey, yeah, Pizer. He so he's a businessman in Canada, Canada, and mad sailing fan. So obviously he'll be on a plane down to Oz fairly shortly, and a lot of the Oz guys are over in Sweden actually, so maybe he'll head over that way to pick up the crew.
Bit of recruitment.
Yeah. No, it'll be good. It'll be good. I wonder who the female person they'll pick up will be.
I think Nicola's in there, isn't she?
Nicola Greke.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think I've seen. I'll tip her in anyway.
Tip her in. Well, she's multiple sailing.
I'll have a chat to Pisey.
Yeah.
Hey, just
or is this just the master stroke of Larry?
Oh.
He's getting in a lot of people that help Larry's wealth grow, like through business partnerships, associations, dragging them into. I think that's how SoftBank came into the cup.
Well,
back in the day,
you both know how important this all is. The big discussions, the big behind doors discussions that go on with sailing. You've openly said that you've seen some big deals being done. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to go one step further and just go back to what we said earlier. It's about the community, whether it be business, whether it be on water, whether it be the athletes. That's what they've done. They're working on that community thing. It's good. Love it.
And it's good. A lot of the guys from the boatyard have got jobs again.
No, it's good. We love it.
We love it.
We'll keep observing.
We do love it.
We love it. We love it.
Love the idea that we can stop for 24 hours in the Sydney to Hobart now.
Yeah. And get your time back. Two more teams for next year in the Sail GP Season 3. That'll be 10. That's the max they're going to allow. So with the addition of the Swiss team and the Canadian team. So I'm not sure we'll see which Australians are sailing those boats for them. I'm just going to keep doing that joke forever, aren't I?
It won't get boring.
But we're fired up. It's a good event, and the owners of those teams, if they make it work, are going to be they're going to have a lot of value in those teams, So
correct.
Absolutely.
Who will be the standout? Who's going to win? We've got 2 more events.
Australia.
Yeah, we love it. And then that's it. Sailing season kicking off in Australia. Everyone's happy. Life's good.
Life's good.
Life's good.
Cool.
Righto.
Nice, gents.
Go and get my guitar again.
Get your guitar.
Get the old slide out, BP.
Get it out. I've got it out.
You're in the guts.
Where do you want me to start?
About midway through.
Okay.
My way.
We'll have so much fun in this week. See you, everyone. Thanks for listening.
See you later, everyone.